This is Jessica from JFF. We're going to get started for folks that are here on time. And if you aren't speaking on this webinar, we're just going to ask that you please mute your line. And we are recording this, so folks who weren't able to come live will be able to get the information. So I'm going to let Melissa get started.
Thanks so much, Jessica. And welcome everybody to our webinar series for metal. This is the Metallurgical Engineering Trades Apprenticeship and Learning Project, and we affectionately call this the Metal Project. I want to introduce myself. I am Melissa McGregor, and I am a director here at JFF, Jobs for the Future. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be leading this series. And so one of the things that I want to point out is that this is the first of a 12-part learning series that we will do over the next year, with pretty much one session per month to get everybody up to speed on work-based learning and the different formats in work-based learning, including internships, registered apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, and all of those kinds of things. So we will go ahead and get started. Jessica, can you switch to the agenda slide, please? Today, I'm going to introduce you to Lucinda Curry, who's going to give you an overview of the Metal Project. Then I'm going to talk about what work-based learning is so that you have a clear foundation of work-based learning. And then I'm going to have the great pleasure of introducing you to one of our employers, an employer, Elwood Group, who is participating with work-based learning. And we're going to have a conversation. And then after that, I'm going to turn it over to Becky, Dr. Caldwell, who's here on the call, and she can help you with how to get started with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lucinda and ask for the next slide, please.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm Lucinda Curry, National Workforce Manager at IACME, and Metal is one of our programs that we manage under the IBEST program for Department of Defense. So we're real excited to be here and to have JFF as a partner to help companies like the ones on the call today to learn more about all the different types of training that's available and how we might be able to assist you with your training initiatives. But to give you some background on Metal, we'll cover a few slides here real quickly. Next. So really the rationale behind the Metal Project is that, casting and forging are a huge piece of the manufacturing supply chain, a critical piece for Department of Defense in particular, but also for commercial products. Metal castings are used to produce over 90% of all durable manufactured goods and nearly all machinery that's used in manufacturing. So you need casting and forging to make the machines that make things. Our foundry workforce has decreased significantly over the last few years, and it's continuing to do so. We're trying to turn that Titanic ship around and start increasing employment in the foundry workforce in the United States. Of course, DoD has deemed this critical to build our resilience back into the casting and forging supply chain, to build submarines, to build warships, to build commercial airplanes, to build everything that's necessary, really, that we use every day that we might not even think about and realize that a cast or forged part is in it. But it is. And so it's just really important market to keep building upon. The global metal casting market size right now is valued at $123 billion in 2021. So that's a huge market. But with the Navy's goals, just the Navy alone, wanting to train more than a year over the next decade, that's huge. So we know for those casting and forging companies that are on here, and ones that are working especially on DoD contracts, whether it's the Navy, Army, or Air Force, this is a Tri-Services initiative, that the demand is going to be great, and this will be something that you can really, build more products, increase your contracts with DoD, but also in the commercial sector. So DoD also has a 30-year plan to reach over 381 ships, to have those built by 2042. Like I said, that's just sort of highlighting the Navy's needs, but there are various needs all across the manufacturing sectors. Next. And as I mentioned before, the reduction in foundry workforce has been significant, 26% reduction. It's been something that, we need to turn around. And if COVID taught us anything in the past few years, it did teach us that we have supply chain problems and some critical needs in our supply chain. So this is something that the metal program is working on and trying to rebuild the workforce, training, development, upskill people who are still there, backfill those that have retired, and just keep building those positions in so that we don't lose this critical piece of our industries. Next. So Metal is an industry-led national initiative, meaning, we're talking to industry, we're speaking with manufacturers in casting, forging, plate rolling, and even metal manufacturing, as well as working with academia, working with Department of Defense, and working with national labs across the country to, see what's already out there, not duplicate effort, and to build on what's there, as well as enhance and focus on automation and the K through 12 outreach, to there again build more capacity into casting and forging as a whole. Metal is supported by the Department of Defense Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment Program, from the Office of Industrial Policy. So I know it's a mouthful. We're so glad though for our funders, and also some of them will be on this call and may be able to answer questions at the end. And just to tell you how important this initiative is, for our national security. Next. And this is from Dr. Matt Draper, who is the Technical Director of Metallurgy and Manufacturing at IBAS. Many of you received an email letter that he had written that we sent out through the associations, and I really appreciate Dr. Draper doing that for us to get the word out. The shrinking supply chain for critical defense materials demands an immediate response. So what Matt says and what we live by in our metal program, and that we must rebuild a modern workforce, technologically adept and capable of meeting the demands of our defense industry with efficiency and innovation. So that is our mission, and I'll turn it back over to Melissa. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucinda. I appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about work-based learning, and I think Jessica's going to pull the slides right back up. And let's see if I can do this without the slides.
Yes, they are coming. They're coming right now.
No worries. So work-based learning is experiential, number one. It is it's defined by activities and experiences. You have to have an experience. When a student or a worker, can you go to the next slide, please? Goes into a workplace and works with the employer or at an employer. It is not necessarily a school project, or it is not necessarily just doing your regular job. It is a learning. It is when you are learning something. You must do meaningful job tasks that will develop a skill, or increase your knowledge, or increase your readiness to work, to support advancement in a particular field. So the key thing here is that it's experiential. And actually a lot of people say experiential work-based learning because it's this very classic example, theory and practice, right? You learn something in school and then you want to put it into practice on the job. And that solidifies your understanding of why you're learning it. And that's why it's important. Next slide, please. So the value of work-based learning, there are these 5 key things here, and that it exposes participants to the world of work. And then similarly, it also exposes participants to a career field. So these first 2 components are really critical for when you are with a student or a young person who might not have ever worked before. It's potentially their first job. And it would it really will help them to understand, can I see myself building a career in this field? And you really want to have them answer that question for themselves. And it's okay if the answer is no, because that tells you something. That's critical information. And I'll give you an example with my own son. When he was a little younger, he wanted to go into forensic science, and he took a whole semester of courses in this. Um, and I guess he thought it was going to be a lot like CSI and being on a crime scene, but it turned out that it was just a lot more paperwork than he was anticipating, and he changed his entire career focus. So it's really good that he knows now that that's not a field that he wants to go into. And particularly with casting and forging, this is something that's either going to be super exciting to somebody, like I'm actually creating something out of liquid metal, or I'm actually, doing something that helps with national defense and there's a purpose behind it. Or they could say no, so you want them to have that exposure. That's part of work-based learning. The other thing is that it strengthens academic learning. So this is, again, what I was talking about before whenever I said, theory and practice, right? So, you want that kind of reflection moment to say, why is it that I'm learning? It's not just for a test. It's for a deeper understanding of the fact that you're actually going to be doing something. And that really helps to kind of like help your brain have the synapses fire and understand the reasoning behind why it's learning a new thing. And then enhances professional skills. This is critical. You want to have someone who has had some practice. You wouldn't want something, welded if it was a person who it's their first weld, right? You want someone who has had an opportunity to have some practice at, puddle control or whatever it is that they're doing. You want them to have some enhancement and practice, experience the thing that they're going to be doing. And then it also can provide a temporary or a permanent job, right? So like with an internship, you can hire the person who was your intern and it turned into a job for them, right? Or it could be that you already have the person on the job and you're training them in a new software system or on a new machine, and that will enhance their permanence and give them, more stickiness, I suppose, to staying in that job role. Next slide, please. This is JFF's work-based learning framework. And so this is really how Jobs for the Future kind of defines what work-based learning is. And you'll see here that there's this piece where we're talking about career exploration, which is not exactly work-based learning, because you're not doing anything if you're in an exploratory phase, right? So this could be things like career fairs or industry projects, like I mentioned earlier, if you're doing something for school and it's not really an experience on the job, where you're not going to get a real understanding of what that career might be like. And that's why there's this kind of dividing line here between things to prepare you for experiential learning and then actual experiential work-based learning. So with work-based learning, there's these different buckets that we've kind of categorized. JFF loves to categorize things. And we have, there's a way that you can think about things that you can do with students to expose them to a career, right? So you can have somebody shadow your employee so that the person can get a real understanding of, being in the environment, what it might be like. You could have somebody come on a company tour and then they're touring through your labs. You probably have seen this, where a group of students might come in through a tour. They're being exposed, but they're not actually taking action. They're not doing anything on the job. Then you can move into this career engagement. This is when somebody is actually engaging with the business. They might have somebody who is acting as a supervisor for their internship or pre-apprenticeship. And so there's this engagement, there's a connection. You're speaking to the person, you know their name, they might be getting paid, they might be on your payroll. So, this could be like an internship or a pre-apprenticeship program. So I'll tell you that the difference between an internship and an apprenticeship program is that internships are like a taste of a career. It's a time boxed, right? It's got a beginning date and an end date. With registered apprenticeship program, there is no end date. You are hiring a person with the intention of retaining them indefinitely, and you will keep them employed. They just happen to be unqualified. So they start off the same. You could hire an intern or you could hire an apprentice, but they're both unqualified for the role. With an intern, you're giving someone a project, you're giving someone some experience. It's real work-based learning because they're having to do something, they're engaging, they're having some experience doing something that is going to be meaningful to the employer. Or a pre-apprenticeship should always lead to an apprenticeship. If there's no apprenticeship at the end of a pre-apprenticeship, it really shouldn't be called a pre-apprenticeship. It should probably be called an internship or a work-based learning experience. But pre-apprenticeship really is for things that lead to apprenticeship. And then finally, kind of the gold standard in terms of career experience, where they're actually in a job, is the apprenticeship program. And so this is kind of like a continuum that you might go through to explore what you might want to do, have a taste of what you might want to do a project within that industry, and then actually get hired. And then also on the job training is work-based learning when you're already on the job. And I think I mentioned that before. So next slide, please. So these are the 7 principles of work-based learning. And I've kind of touched on some of this in my earlier introduction. So it can support entry and advancement into a career track, providing meaningful job tasks that build career skills and knowledge. It should offer compensation. It doesn't have to always with pre-apprenticeship and internships. They don't always offer compensation, but you also are trying to attract people and you want them to want to work for you. And so one of the best ways to do that is to offer compensation. It can identify some targeted skills and how those gains will be validated. You can recognize them for skills development. So if somebody was making $17 an hour and they've developed a whole new skill set and you know it, you should probably recognize that with some type of reward in terms of wage progression. And then it could support college entry, also persistence and completion. So when somebody knows why they're learning something, it really helps them with the persistence and completion piece. And you want people who are working at your company that have a degree or have a certificate of some kind. They need to have completed something that makes them more valuable to you. So allowing for that persistence and completion is a benefit to you. And then it can provide comprehensive student support. So lots of support for the student side. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the benefits to you as an employer to develop your talent pipeline. This is kind of the grow your own. If you can't find qualified talent, hire unqualified talent and partner with an intermediary or an organization that can help you to develop that talent to be the perfect ideal candidate that you would have hired if they had presented to you at that time fully qualified. It also ensure quality job preparation. How many people on the call have had a new employee that they had to retrain because they had learned sort of the bad habits? Everybody thinks there's a bad habit, and some people might think those habits are good habits, but ensuring that the person is trained specifically for the way that you do business at your company is one of the reasons that you would engage in work-based learning. To access a diverse and innovative workforce, there's so much data on the fact that if you have a diverse workforce with non-homogeneous socioeconomic status and place-based rearing, there is just bringing in fresh perspectives and new ideas, and it'll also broaden your applicant base. It'll give you some name recognition. So this is about, positive publicity and branding opportunities. So if you're in the high schools or even in the community colleges offering work-based learning opportunities or internships to young people, then they will remember that and they will think fondly of their time at your company whenever they did a project, or they will, that's goodwill that goes out into the community because you offered that opportunity. And then, of course, contributing to economic development. So people who are employed naturally increase your tax base, strengthen your economy. There's reduced unemployment, and people who work buy goods and homes and have kids and all of the things that you want for economic development. So those are just some of the benefits for employers. Next slide, please. So I think this is my opportunity to introduce you to Dina Baptist, who is the Director of Talent Management at Elwood Group. Earlier, Dina was having some technical difficulties with her camera, and so she may stay off camera and just use her voice, and I will welcome Dina to the floor. Dina, are you there?
I'm here, Melissa. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk to everybody.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences. We appreciate it. So why don't you start by telling everyone a little bit about Elwood Group and your role within the company?
Yeah, so the Elwood Group is a family-owned heavy metal manufacturer. We actually were founded in 1910 in Elwood City. Since that time, we have grown. We have over 25 locations with 10 different divisions, and we operate in 3 different countries. We have approximately 2,300 employees, all non-union, across the company. And my role as the Director of Talent Management is to really engage in the educational partners and try and find that talent that, might not be out there looking. So.
Thank you. So what workforce challenge were you trying to solve? What sort of challenges were you facing before you implemented your work-based learning program? And then, how did it impact your business? The challenge, how was the challenge impacting your business?
So before we started the work-based learning program, we were struggling to find the right fit candidates that had the skills that we needed. With the pandemic, as with every other business, we had people who decided they no longer wanted to work. So we had a high turnover during that time. And we were just struggling to find people with the skill set that we needed to be able to come in and operate the machines or fix the machines or run the forging machines, things along those lines. We took a hard look at what our needs are for the current, back then it was 2019. We took a hard look at what we needed for current, but also for our future needs, because we projected that we would have about 5 to 7% retirement over the next five years or so. So we looked at our turnover rates, we looked at the needs that are going to be forthcoming with the retirement in those critical roles, and decided that if we weren't able to find the talent, it was probably best for us to start growing our own talent. And part of that had to be reflecting on how long it takes an employee, a new employee or a new team member, become fully productive in that role. So that created kind of our roadmap for our work-based learning programs for today.
Nice. 5 to 7% retirements. That sounds pretty heavy. Was that sort of like the deciding factor, or was there a moment that, sort of made you realize, or, you said you took a hard look, and I'm just curious, is that the turning point that you had?
That was part of it, yeah. Between the turnover that we had during the pandemic and prior trying to hire the right candidates with the right skill set, we hadn't had really an issue recruiting before that. But as with everybody else, the pandemic really had an impact on our workforce and our ability to recruit and retain. So.
Yeah, that's huge and ubiquitous. So how did you identify partners, such as a training provider, or are you doing the training in-house? Can you kind of describe your partnership with everyone?
Absolutely. So we took a multi-pronged approach to it. We actually are using some online training program partners. We are engaged with different agencies in the area. So Penn Technical College is one of our educational partners, and also the German American Chamber of Commerce is a partner of ours. Both of them offer apprentice programs and pre-apprentice programs. With the Penn College, they actually had a great program set up for mechatronics that we utilized. And one of the reasons we chose them is because they were very flexible. We have a large group and we had a large number of apprentices we wanted to put through that program. So they were really instrumental in helping us set that up, and they still are. So we just started about 3 years ago, and we are working to get this apprentice program federally registered, and they're a big component of helping me move forward with that. The German American Chamber actually is helping us focus on high school students who are looking to get into the mechatronics field. So we will find high school students that are interested in working at Elwood, and then they go through their program, but also work at Elwood in the meantime. So they've been instrumental in helping us get into the high schools for that exposure.
Yeah, so it sounds like flexibility was one of the key drivers. Can you describe the work-based learning model that you've got for the participants at Elwood?
So for the apprentice program for Penn College, they actually, and this is where the flexibility, as you mentioned, come into play. They actually do virtual sessions for us
Nice.
twice a week. And they are 2-hour sessions, but we have multiple cohorts because we have several people in the apprentice program. But they were able to set up a virtual component for us. With the German American Chamber, the apprentice will work in the shop for 4 days and spend 1 8-hour day in their apprentice program learning and going through the skills. So each one of them was able to actually set up a little bit of a different model for us and be able to kind of meet our needs that way.
How many apprentices or participants do you have in your programs at Elwood?
For the apprentice programs, we have almost 50 right now
That's a lot.
between both programs. Yes.
And so how do you recruit participants for that program? In terms of kind of
So
qualifications and characteristics, what are you looking for when in potential participants?
when we started it, the first thing that we did is we went to our internal workforce and we looked to see if anybody was interested in, going through the apprentice program, furthering their education, their skill set. But then we can go outside of the program as well. As I mentioned with the German American Chamber, the apprentice we have in that program, he came out of high school. He wasn't an employee with Elwood when he started. And he is an employee now, and he's going through that program. And then when he graduates, he will have his apprentice certificate and be able to run the machines right alongside the other seasoned workers. But when we go outside, we look for some very specific criteria. So, we're looking for somebody who is interested in continually learning. That is something that we have committed to our team members is, to provide continual training and education. So they have to be willing and interested in, continuing to learn, because our path at Elwood doesn't always go vertical. Sometimes it can go horizontal. We have a lot of locations, so maybe you're moving, you're doing something different. Growth comes in a lot of forms at Elwood.
And so it sounds like you have a lot of different types of programs. one with the German American Chamber of Commerce that seems to be more of a registered apprenticeship program, and then others that are only eligible. You have to be an incumbent worker, or you have to be someone on staff at Elwood to get the job. Am I getting that correctly?
For the Penn College, that's the way that we started the program. Once we get through, as I mentioned, we're only in year 3 right now.
Okay.
So once we get through the amount of workers that we have in the program, I'm sure we would look outside if we still had a need for putting people into that program. One of the unique features of Elwood is, even though we are owned by one family company, each one of our business units operates autonomously. So while we all have general needs, you know, if they find a need to put people into an apprentice program from the outside and hire them, they very well have the opportunity to do that.
Great. This is so fantastic. So what are the responsibilities and expectations of the participants or the apprentices that are in the program? What do they have to do?
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what are the expectations that you have of the apprentices themselves or the participants? What are their responsibilities as an apprentice in this program?
So their responsibilities, the first one obviously is to maintain engagement in the program, right? But we
Right.
want them to good attendance, you know, we want to make sure that they are learning everything they can, but we also want them to continue to learn while they're on the job and working with the mentors that we have set up in each of the locations that have apprentices.
So how did you integrate mentorship? You just mentioned working with their mentors. So how did you integrate this idea of mentorship? And I just want to address also, there's a question in the chat about, do you have to have a licensed journeyman? Which you don't have to have a licensed journeyman. You really just have to have an expert who can train someone in a specific occupation. So in terms of the type of mentorship that, you know, someone is an expert and they're training the or supervising the young people or the unqualified people, how do you integrate that learning into your program?
So, you know, it takes a special person to be able to mentor,
Yes,
you
it
know.
does.
So we all know that there are some people that are not meant to be in training.
Yes.
But we look at people who have, you know, been here a long time, who naturally gravitate towards new employees who takes them under their wing. And we have those conversations with them, right? Are you interested in being part of this? Can you help us grow the next workforce? Those conversations are really important. So, you know, we identify a few of them. We also have training managers in some of our locations that are very good in helping to drive that mentor, find people that they can pair them with to help that person learn and continue to grow. So those aspects of the program are really important to kind of keep it going and help that growth happen with mentorship. And I do want to make a comment on the journeyman. So you're right, it doesn't have to be a licensed journeyman. And one of the things with Pennsylvania versus the federal is the requirement for PA was so high that we ended up using the federal guidelines and trying to register apprentice program for federal, because when we first started it, we needed too many journeymen to be able to mentor our apprentices. So the federal was a little bit easier to work with, and that's why we went federal for our apprentice program. So.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. And it really speaks to the flexibility of the registered apprenticeship model. There's all kinds of designs that you can do to make it work for you. And just let's back up another minute, if you don't mind, Dina, but you mentioned a training manager, I think. Maybe I'm getting the
Yeah.
words wrong. But what's the difference between the training manager and the mentor supervisor? What is the difference between those two roles? And how did you come up with it?
So the training manager is really there to facilitate the learning, right? To help, help manage the on-the-job training sheet, to help make sure that learning has happened, to meet with the supervisor or the mentor that is working with the apprentice. So, and then also they are there to help, excuse me, they are there to help um, if there are questions, like if maybe the relationship between the mentor and the apprentice isn't working well, right? Maybe it's just not working. They're there as that support system that if that mentor needs to be changed, we have that ability to do it.
That's a really good point. So that makes me think, what are some challenges that you might have faced in implementing or maintaining kind of the work-based learning model, or if there were other unexpected obstacles or adjustments that you had to make along the way?
So one of the challenges that we found when we first started this is we had more apprentices than we have right now. Okay.
Oh,
We had given the opportunity to several apprentices. And they started in on the program and decided it wasn't for them. So, you know, I think if we would have taken maybe a pre-apprentice approach as opposed to straight into apprentice, I
mhm.
think that would have helped with some of them identifying that this wasn't the route they wanted to go.
Right.
The way that we were able to pivot that, though, is they still wanted the knowledge and the learning, but that format wasn't for them. As I had mentioned, Penn College did the virtual option for us. So they weren't, they didn't feel they got the most out of it. So it was
Mhm.
important for us to be able to help them another way. And we were able to do that. And we did that with our on the job training program.
Yeah, that kind of really speaks to people's different learning styles. So if one person isn't as comfortable with a virtual learning environment, then that's really not going to work for them. So it's really great that you have that flexibility. So have you noticed any improvements in your workforce overall, or what has been sort of like the I know that you're still in the program. It's kind of nascent. You're 3 years in, so you don't have, completion data yet. But have you noticed any improvements in kind of employee retention or increase in skill levels or productivity as a result of this initiative?
So the skill level has increased. They're learning a lot. Some of them came in, were seasoned workers, and they knew how to do it. They didn't know the theory behind it.
Hmm.
So that was good for them. But also the engagement has gone up,
Uh-huh.
right? Which is a very positive impact on the people in the business unit. It's important for us to kind of recognize that this isn't for everybody, right? So maybe understanding that as we kind of go through, that's the one thing that I would continue to think about is, making sure we're selecting the right people. And we have a great team. So just because this isn't for them, doesn't mean they're not as the asset to the team in what we do.
Right, that's critical. Um, yeah, and so would you say that the apprentices, and this is just kind of your best guess, because I don't know if you have data on it, but would you say that people who are going through the apprentice program are becoming more productive more quickly than people who are just hired off the street and are learning the ropes at Elwood without the education piece? Or do you have any comparison?
So I can give you an example. We utilize there's a training program in Danville, Virginia. It's called the Advanced Training Defense Program. I think it's called ATDM. And we've been using them for about 3 years now, and they have an accelerated training program for about 4 months. And we have taken workers within our facility and sent them down there for 4 months. They come back with certificates and are able to go up a level very quickly, where it might take them a year or 2 years to gain those skills. They are able to come back in and move a level within a few months. So that has been very, very good for us and good for them as well, because they're very interested in continuing to grow. So
That's a great data point. So do you have any plans to expand or modify this model based on your experience so far?
So we have a lot of models going on. I don't know if we will expand, but we will definitely tweak as needed as we continue down this path. So,
Yeah,
because
that
we
sounds
also offer an on-the-job training program for 2 of our positions. So while we also do pre-apprentice and apprentice programs, and we do on-the-job training and internships. So we definitely take a multi-pronged approach to kind of tackle this shortage.
That's a lot. So based on your deep experience, what advice would you give to the other employers who are on the call today, who might be considering adopting a similar approach to address their workforce strategies?
Start small.
Okay.
Start small for sure. I would start small, but I would also say, if you're considering this, start now. Right? I just came back from a conference, and that was the big reoccurring theme. I wish we would have started this 5 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So it's really important, if you're considering this, to start small, identify your needs, and start now.
Yeah, that is such good advice. And I feel like this entire conversation, you've just been setting me up for my next question the whole time. And this absolutely sets me up for introducing Dr. Becky Caldwell, who can help anyone who wants to start now figure out what we can do for you to start. And then Becky, do you want to do questions at the end? And Dina, I hope you'll be available to answer questions from the audience. Yes. No?
Absolutely.
Becky, do you want to do questions now or at the end or what?
Let's wait till the end because somebody's asking about the funding. So let me just give a quick overview
that
on
sounds
the
good.
supports that are available through this project. I'm Becky Caldwell, and I'm a senior manager here at JFF, and we are a partner on the Metal Project, as Melissa said, and we're really like the boots on the ground in terms of working with companies to help them build out, especially apprenticeship programs. We can talk to you about all sorts of things, though. If you're interested in pre-apprenticeship, if you're interested in internship, we have a lot of expertise in those areas, and we can talk to you, just like Melissa did, educate you about the different models and the benefits of each and who you reach out to and how you get going. And there's another partner on this project called FEF, the Foundry Educational Foundation. I think I got the name right. Lucinda can correct me. That is actually doing a lot of internship work too. So they can get involved too. So as part of Metal, though, JFF's role is to really give direct technical assistance to employers who are interested in setting up registered apprenticeship programs. We have years and years of expertise in this. Melissa and I are both on another project where we do this across manufacturing, where we talk to companies about registered apprenticeship. We guide the companies. We can guide you all through the design of your program, through no matter where you are. This project, I think we said, started in Pennsylvania. That's why we have a lot of interest in Pennsylvania, but we are moving beyond Pennsylvania. We can work with companies anywhere. We can talk to you about, why it's important, how you get started, how you identify the occupation, and then talk to you a little bit about how you want to pick your apprentices. Do you want to go outside? Do you want to hire internally, select your apprentices internally first, like a lot of manufacturers do, and there's good and bad to both methods. So as part of this also, we do have some support for you all. There is free training available related to casting and forging on the Metal for America website. Do you have that? Can one of you guys put it up in the chat, the Metal for America? I think that's what it's called. website in the chat. If not, I can do it when we get done to the question part. But if you go on there, there is about 10 hours of free training you or anyone else can take at no cost that has been developed through this project. And you can use that as part of related training of an apprenticeship, or just ask people at your company to take it to improve their skills and improve their knowledge. We also have developed a lot of relationship with trade associations that have online training, and we can point you in the right direction if that's something you're interested, or help you find local partners. We really want our companies to work with their local colleges if possible. So this is a little more about the trainings that are available. As I said, there's online training. The Metal Project is having boot camps right now that have started in Pennsylvania that are going to go nationwide, that your employees may be able to attend. So you just need to send us a note and we'll get you connected to the people doing the boot camps. Our specialty, though, is the apprenticeship. That's why Melissa and I are here. That's really our passion, and Eric, who's also on the call. And we really work with companies, as I said, to help them build out apprenticeship programs from the very beginning, or we just come in and do what you need us to do. We've worked with, probably 200 employers in the past few years related to apprenticeship. Through our other project, we supported thousands of apprentices. So we have a lot of experience in that area. And there is no cost to our services because it's covered by this project. So you can take it to the last slide, I think, which is about the funding. Someone had asked about funding. We do have funding available through this project. We call it incentive funding. And it's as simple as sending me a note and I can send you an application. And it's not enough to start a new program. Don't think that we're going to help you launch a program at your company because, the cap is $24,000. That's probably not enough to pay your HR department, but it is a lot. It goes a long way to help offsetting the cost of supplies for the apprentices, perhaps, or for the related training. Whether it's at a college or it's online, that $24,000 can go a really long way. The only thing we cannot cover are wages for the apprentices themselves. So the eligible applicants do include manufacturers in casting, forging, and plate rolling. For this project, we do have other funding. If you are in some other area of manufacturing, send me a note anyway, because we're involved in another project that is a broader in terms of the sectors of manufacturing we can help. But this is casting and forging, and this is the metal project. So just send me a note, and my email is right there, and we'd love to talk to you guys about what you're thinking and how we can support you. That's it for me, and we are happy to answer questions. Lucinda is on the call. You can see her email is here too, and she is the expert here on the project as a whole, where they're going next and what they're looking at doing in the future. And then Dean, of course, is still on here, and Melissa and I. So you can put questions in the chat, or you can contact us later, and we're happy to respond by email or set up a call, whatever's the easiest for you all. Melissa, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. I just want to make sure that, Cameron, your question was answered about the journeyman. They do not have to be a journeyman. They just have to be experienced in that occupation. In some states, they'll make you prove how long the mentors have been doing the job. And in other states, there's really not a lot of qualifications as long as the employer says that they're qualified to teach that next person. Because why on earth would you train somebody for your own business if you weren't qualified to train? These are your employees, and the entire apprenticeship model is very employer driven. And so, there's not a test necessarily, at least not right now, to prove that, those apprentices learned all the skills for that occupation. But presumably, since these are your employees, you're going to train them to be, the most qualified that they can be for your company. Mentorship is a serious requirement. They must have a mentor. And generally there are ratios about how many how many apprentices per mentor. And for the most part across the country, it's generally no more than 1-to-1, as in one apprentice to one mentor. You don't want to have a lot of unqualified people on the same job site without appropriate supervision. Think about, in your industry with hot metal and other things that are hot. and potential for safety. You want to have somebody who's supervising those apprentices. So, any other questions for the good of the order? I'm going to wait 7 seconds.
I'll make a quick point, Melissa.
Go
Talking
ahead.
about testing, this might have gotten covered, but I don't think we did. And that is, if you have apprentices or people that you want to put into your apprenticeship program that do have prior skills and experience, we can work with you on that. And it is allowable under Department of Labor apprenticeship regulations to give credit for experience or for related training or both. Especially you're working with incumbent workers and you want to move someone up, but they already have some experience in the field, then you definitely, want to give them that credit. And there's ways to do that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks so much, Lucinda. Really good point. Yeah, there is not necessarily always a divide between a college route and an apprenticeship route, because a lot of times the related technical instruction for the apprenticeship program comes with college credit or is taught by a community college. And so it is both. It is both and. Or if they have some experience, exactly like Lucinda just said, they could get college credit for the experience that they've had on the job. So. And thank you so much to Jessica for putting the next of our learning series in the chat. Oh, I see another question. Do you train apprenticeships through simulation software such as Forge or Deform, other simulation software?
That's probably a question for Dina.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Dina. Dina, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you see the question?
Those softwares before they're mentioned in the chat? I'm familiar. I'm not familiar with them. Forge or Deform.
So for the apprentices, I don't know if Penn College uses like the simulation software within their apprentice program. We do some simulation, but it has been typically with like our crane training. So in regards to the actual forging and forging software or anything like that, I can't answer that, unfortunately.
John, if you want to send me a note, and if I hear of anybody, I'll let you know. We have some other, we have a lot of other apprenticeship consultants on our team. I can check and see if they have any experience with it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We'll have to get back to you on that one. And I just want to express our thanks to Elwood Group and Dina. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. I know that the audience learned a lot from your experience. Hopefully you'll have people reach out to you. And like Becky said, here's all of our contact information. So please feel free to reach out to any of us. We can help you as an intermediary to go through the whole process of establishing, the processes to keep this in place. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.